Yesterday was my wife's birthday. Yeah. Makes it easy to remember because it's New Year's Eve. And I make the same joke every year. I say, honey, you're so amazing that the entire world throws a party for your birthday. We grew up together. Not a lot of people know this, but I've known my wife my entire life. In fact, I think we have a picture when we were kids. Yeah. I think I'm mad at the camera guy because I'm making my move and he's blocking me. So we got 4 kids now. I got a 12-year-old named Connor. I have a 9-year-old named Rebecca. I have a 6-year-old named Jonathan, and I have a 5-year-old named Rachel. And there's a Rachel fan down here. And a few months ago, we dumped him off on the grandparents, and we were going to go on a midnight walk on the beach, like a late night, real late night, romantic night at the beach. And I've seen enough serial killer documentaries and forensic files to know that national forests and secluded beaches, well, that's where serial killers go to hunt. So if you're going to go to where serial killers play, you got to have a plan, right? So I sit down with Bonnie and I say, here's what we're going to do if somebody evil comes up and tries to try something. I'm going to fight. And you're going to run. You run as fast as you can, as far as you can. Don't try to help me. Don't look back. Don't have a conversation. You can scream. That's an option. But just run. And until you get to a place where you're completely safe, then call the cops to come help me. Now, there's a good chance that while I'm defending your life, I'm going to lose mine. And so I just have 2 simple requests. 1, never marry again. And don't let any other men raise my kids. May my absence be a gaping hole in their lives. So we went out to the beach that night. And you couldn't see, there was nobody as far as the eyes could see. It's late, it's midnight 1. We're out there for an hour. And then off in the distance, there's this shadowy figure that starts walking towards us, right? He gets a little closer and a little closer. And eventually I look at Bonnie and I go, I don't want to find out if this dude's a killer or something like that. So let's just leave. So we get up and we head back to the boardwalk that we came down on. We get about halfway up the boardwalk and I turn around to see where this guy is. This guy has caught all the way up to us and now is at the bottom of the boardwalk. And I think this dude really is following us. And I look at Bonnie and I go, run. And she just takes off. She really did leave me in the dust. She was gone. Have you ever had to run from something? If you have your, no. If you have your Bibles with you, why don't you turn to Exodus 3. We're going to look at a character in the Bible who had to run for their life. It's a guy named Moses. Moses was the prince of Egypt. He was one of the princes, and he was one of the most powerful men in the most powerful empire in human history. And then he had to run. He had to run for his life. And now he had nothing. He's just a sheep herder. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you're here today and you feel like you had it all. You had the family and you had the business, the job, the finances, the house. You had it all. And then you lost it all. And now you're just a sheep herder. As we zoom into chapter 3, verse 1, it says, Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And then he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, known as the mountain of God. It goes on to say that Moses, as he reaches the mountain, he sees this bush that's on fire and it just won't burn out, and he's curious about it, so he starts approaching the bush, and a voice cries out to him and says, Take your sandals off, you're on holy ground. And this begins this dialogue between Moses and the living God. Now, God's about to put Moses at a crossroads where he's going to challenge him to change and become all that he's called him to be, or he can go back to being a sheep herder. God's putting him at this fork in the road in his life where God's calling him to be the liberator of the Israelite people, or you can choose to stay the same and be a sheep herder. Would you guys pray with me? Jesus, we welcome you into the room. Lord, I pray that this wouldn't just be a regular Sunday, but as we kick off 2023, that this would be the beginning of a transformation in our lives, where you'd begin to shape our hearts and our actions to be more like you. In Jesus' name, amen. Moses is in this position where he's being called to change and become something different. We're in this series called Resolution Revolution, revolutionizing our resolutions. And what's a resolution? It's an attempt to change and become something new. What's your resolution this year? What is that thing in your life that you want to change, that you wish was different? Maybe you want to be a better parent, more engaged in your kid's life. A better spouse, more attentive to their needs. Maybe you want to get free from that addiction. You want to get your health back, launch that business, or go back to school. Maybe you want to have a better relationship with God, read your Bible more, pray more. Maybe you want to be less angry, less selfish. What is that thing in your life that you would like to shift and make different? Why don't you hang on to that for a minute? I love resolutions. I'm a big fan of resolutions. Ever since I was young, I loved the idea that I could just change in a moment. I could be somebody new. I could stop doing the things I was doing and change and become somebody different, that my habits and my hang-ups and my mistakes from my past didn't have to define my future, but it could just inform my future, that I could become somebody different in a moment's notice. I could just make the decision to change. And I love stopping points in the year, like January 1st or the first of the month or the first of the week or your birthday, where you can look back and assess, like 2022 had this for me and this is how I responded to it, but 2023 is going to be different. I'm going to change. I'm going to become somebody new. I'm going to become this person in 2023. I love that idea of being able to change things. And over the last few years, it's really become an obsession of mine. It's an obsession to this idea of, am I becoming somebody I would admire? Am I becoming somebody that I want to be? And I'm always assessing that and then making resolutions and taking steps towards changing those things. And you take intentional steps, and then all of a sudden down the road, it becomes just part of who you are. You know that I realized this Christmas was the first Christmas that I wasn't as surprised as my kids were on what I got them for Christmas. Because I was engaged in the Christmas present buying process. I was like, Bonnie, I want to get the kids this, I want to get them that, and I want to get Connor a bike because I want to go biking with him. Now, years ago, I decided that I wanted to be more intentional in my kid's life, and then I wake up a few years later, and it's just the outpouring of who I am. I'm making these decisions without even thinking about it, that I want to be involved in their present buying, but I also want those presents to be things that help me engage in their world. And I realized, man, I'm becoming that person I set out to be. That you can make those changes. Now, maybe you're here today and you don't make resolutions. You're like, resolutions are dumb. You know, I don't do the January 1st, do you know what the statistical odds of a resolution according to Forbes, blah, 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 blah. Shut up. Yeah, maybe you don't make resolutions on January 1st, but what about February 1st or June 22nd or August 31st, when you wake up and you say, I'm going to change this thing about myself. I want to get free from this addiction. I want to get healthier. I want to work on my marriage. I want to get involved in my kids' world. I want to go back to school and become more educated. I want to make this shift in my life and change and become something different. We all make resolutions. The question isn't whether or not we make resolutions. The question is really, how come they so often fail? How come so often when we set out to do something, we fail at it? I've been thinking about that, and I have a few reasons. They're not all the reasons, but they're the reasons we're going to talk about today based on this experience that Moses is in. I got 5 reasons. That's a lot of reasons, so we're going to have to go fast. If you're taking notes, why don't you write this down? The first reason is we're unwilling to go through the pain. Why our resolutions fail. Number 1, we're unwilling to go through the pain. Growth comes with growth comes growing pains. Change is painful. To become something different, to change my behavioral patterns, that's painful. We're unwilling to go through the pain that it takes. My son, Jonathan, my 6-year-old, he's my youngest son. He is the spitting image of me. He's wild and adventurous and impulsive. He thinks out loud. He's adventure seeking. And we were on vacation a few months ago. And he was out at the pool, and he had this boogie board, and he was running towards the pool with the boogie board, and he'd throw it in there and jump on it and try to slide across the pool, right? And he kept doing this over and over again. And then one moment he's running past me, and he trips and he falls, hurts himself. And he pops up, and he has this conversation with himself. Like, he's not talking to anybody but himself. He says, "Whew, I'm never doing that again." And then 2 seconds later, he goes, who am I kidding? I'm totally doing this again. And he grabs the boogie board and runs off. Because for him, the pain was worth it. The potential pain was worth the adventure and the fun and the enjoyment that he was gonna have. My wife talks about when she was a kid, she used to weigh out the excitement and joy that she would have if she did something versus the pain and punishment she would get from her parents for getting caught doing it. And she would weigh those two things out. And if the joy and excitement outweighed the pain and the punishment, she would do it. There was There was nothing ethical about that. All our teens are down here. Do not take notes on that. Make good ethical decisions. We're not willing to go through the pain that it takes to change. Moses, it says in verse 1, it says that he took the flock to the far side of the wilderness. To the far side of the wilderness, to the mountain of God. That means that Moses had to go dozens, if not hundreds of miles, hours, if not days, through this desolate wasteland. He had to go through the pain of going through this hot, nasty desert as he dragged his sheep to the mountain of God to get to this moment of change. He had to go through the pain to get there. But Pastor, no carbs? Like none? I can't do that. It's too painful. You want me to get up how early to go to the gym? I need my beauty sleep. They should change before I'll change, or maybe we should change together, but there's no way I'm gonna change on my own. There's no way I'm gonna become selfless and serve them. They'll just walk all over me. I'm too tired to play with the kids when I get home. I need to rest. You're not willing to go through the pain to make the change. Growth is painful, change is painful, but nothing is more painful than staying stuck somewhere as someone you don't belong being. Number 2 reason why our resolutions fail is because we don't think it's possible. We just don't think it's possible. It's not possible for us to change. It's not possible for me to become that person. We just think it's impossible. I like biking. I bike from my house to the church. It's about a 45-minute bike ride. And one day I was biking to the church. I was crossing this intersection, and this car was nice enough to stop and let me cross the intersection. I look up, and the car behind them is not stopping. So they're doing 40, 45 miles an hour, and it's this slow-mo experience where I see this car just plow into the back of that car. And now that car is trying to plow into me, and I'm biking as fast as I can. And I get around that car, and I stop my bike, jump off to make sure everybody's okay. I get back on my bike, and I head on my way. Now I'm telling everybody this story. Man, you wouldn't believe what happened. I was biking today, and there was this car accident. I almost got hit by a car. It was crazy. I'm on my way home. I leave the church property. I'm about a block off the church property. I got my AirPods in. I'm on the phone with a friend, and I'm telling them this story. And they say, hey, be careful. You don't want to get hit by a car on the way home. And I said, what are the odds that I would get hit by a car? Like, I bike all the time. I've never been hit by a car. But on the same day that I see this car accident and I almost get hit by a car, that I would be biking home and get hit by a car. I mean, that's literally impossible. And just then, a car comes barreling out of Bailey's, nails me, and I fly right up on the hood. I come sliding off the hood, and I stand up, and I go, bro, what are you doing? And then I realize I'm a block from the church. This guy might know that I'm a pastor, so you gotta calm down. Calm down real quick. He made sure I was okay. I took off. We think it's impossible. We think it's impossible for us to become that person. It's impossible for us to make that change. Exodus 3:11, Moses said to God in this dialogue, he says, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? I'm just a nobody. I'm just a nobody. There's no way I could change from being a sheep herder to the liberator of the Israelite people. There's no way I could be a good parent. My parents were never even around. There's no way I could make this marriage work. This is my second one. There's no way I could be free from this addiction. You just don't understand. I've been an addict for so long. There's no way I could lose that weight. I've been overweight my whole life. There's no way I could go back to school. I'm just not smart enough. Nobody in my family has ever been successful. I couldn't do it. It's just not possible. It's not possible for me to change. The only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them to the impossible. Number 3 reason why, if you're taking notes, you can write this down, that our resolutions fail is because we think we don't have the right tools. We think we don't have the right tools. We don't have what we need to make the change. When I was a kid, I always had like junk cars. I still own like pretty junky cars, not because I can't afford them now, just because I'm used to them. But when I was a kid, I couldn't afford it. And so if you buy a junk car, like it breaks down quickly. And you can't afford a mechanic to fix it, so you gotta learn how to fix a car yourself. So me and my buddies, we would always be fixing somebody's car in my wife Bonnie's garage because her parents had all the tools that we needed. So we were in their car, or in the garage one day fixing a car, and we kick over this bucket of oil, just spills, just nasty oil all over the garage floor, and we think, man, we gotta get this cleaned up quick before Bonnie's parents find out about it. Now the proper tool to cleaning up oil is kitty litter. You just throw some kitty litter down on it, it'll soak it right up. We didn't have any of that. So we put our brilliant minds together and we thought, what kind of tool could we use? How about fire? We could burn it off. So we lit that bad boy on fire. And quickly went, bad idea. We put that fire out, cleaned the oil up, and nobody was the wiser. But we don't think we have the right tools. We don't think we have the things that we need to be successful. In Exodus 4:24, here Moses is having this conversation with God, and he's saying, hey, I went through the pain to get to this change moment through the wilderness, and you're telling me it's possible for me to become this person. But here's the deal. When I get to the Israelites, how are they gonna know that you sent me? And God says this interesting thing that I think we should take note of. He says to Moses, what's in your hand? What's in your hand? And Moses looks down and it's his staff. It's his work tool. It's how he guides the sheep, how he protects the sheep. It's the paintbrush to a painter, the hammer to a carpenter, the computer to a tech guy. It's his work tool. And he says, throw that down. So Moses throws it on the ground and it turns into a snake. I do think it's funny and peculiar that the author then goes on to let us know that Moses screamed and ran away. And God had to be like, Moses, get back here. Moses comes back and he picks up the snake and it turns back into his staff. And God says to him, that's how I'm going to use what's in your hand. And basically what he's saying is you already have the tools that you need. I've already equipped you to do this. You already have everything you need in your hand. But we think we don't have the right tools. You know, if I could just afford top-notch marriage counseling, like the best in Jacksonville, I could really fix this marriage. And I'm pro-marriage counseling, go for it. But you know where you could start? Like, you could, I don't know, be nice. Just be nice to your spouse. That's a start towards a better marriage. If I could just afford that gym membership. Or you could go for a walk. That's also free 99. Like you have the tools you need. If I could just raise the capital I needed to launch that business, or you could take steps towards it right now. You have the tools you need. I remember going to the hospital one day, and I was going to do like a hospital visit for a stranger. And I was driving there and I was thinking, why am I going to this stupid hospital visit? You know, and that may sound bad coming from a pastor, but I'm like not the king of care, okay? I'm the king of I don't care. You know, there's all other pastors on our staff who are loving and very empathetic. We could have sent one of them. And those of you in this room don't that are judging me right now, the Bible is very clear about that. But I show up and I sit down with this guy and I realize my years of addiction equipped me to have this conversation. The tools were already in my hand. The tools are in your hand. Fourth reason, if you're taking notes, you can write this down. Fourth reason why our resolutions fail is we don't have the right people around us. We don't have the right people around us. We just don't have the right friends and the right relationships. When I was a kid, I had all these families that adopted me like I was some lost orphan. They really did. I'm like one of their kids. So my wife's family, when I was 10, I moved in with them. So they think of me as a son. And like there was the Zins family when I was in my teens, I moved in with them. And there was the Lind family and the Norin family and the Rampy family. There's all these families that I'm like a son to them. And when I was 17, I lived with the Zins family. And a few houses down that same road was the Lind family. That was my buddy Bucky's family. And the three of us terrorized that neighborhood. We were just, it's not like we were violent criminals. We were more vandals than anything. We just liked to have fun. And so we tore up that neighborhood a bit. And on Christmas, I would spend it with the Zins family. And on Thanksgiving, I would spend it with the Lund family. And years would go by. Over the last 25 years, we've stayed friends. We're still great friends. About 3 months ago, my buddy Bucky texted me, and it just said, Dad died. So I give him a call, and I see how he's doing. We chat for a little bit, and then we get on a three-way with Zins. Get him on the call. The three of us are talking. Now, they both still live in Minnesota, where I'm from. And obviously, I'm here in Jacksonville. And I kind of take a step back in the call, and they're talking to each other. Now, mind you, none of my friends are Christians. These guys they don't have a Christian background and grow up in a Christian home, and the way they currently live their life is pales in comparison to how they lived their lives when they were younger. Right? It's very tame. But one of them says to the other one, he says, "Hey man, if I rolled something and came on over, would that make you feel better?" And the other one said, "Oh man, I'd really like that." And I thought, we just have different solutions to this problem, boys. Because if you hang out with drug addicts, you're gonna do drugs. That's just what you're gonna do. If you don't have the right, if you wanna make a shift and become something different, you gotta get around people that are already doing that. If you wanna get healthy, you can't hang out with people who love fast food and watching movies. You gotta get around people who are active and eating healthy. You gotta have the right relationships to make that shift. Moses, he's having this conversation with God in Exodus 4:13 through 17. He's still talking to him. And he says, listen, I understand. I've gone through the pain to come to this change moment. You're telling me it's possible. You're telling me I have the tools that you need. But the truth is I have a legit disability. I can't speak. I'm a stutterer. And God goes, okay, I'm going to send you Aaron. Aaron's going to be your mouthpiece. He's going to be the one who's going to communicate to the Israelites and to Pharaoh. Basically what God says is, I'm gonna send you the right people so that you can shift and become who I'm calling you to be. If you wanna become a business owner, you gotta get around entrepreneurs. If you wanna be somebody who's madly in love with God, then you gotta get around people who are madly in love with God. If you wanna be a better parent, you gotta get around better parents. The reason why we fail at our resolutions is because we have the wrong relationships. Tennessee Williams says, life is partly what we make it and partly what is made by the friends we choose. Number 5, fifth reason. We're moving quick, huh? Fifth reason why our resolutions fail. We make the wrong assumptions. We make the wrong assumptions. So every Tuesday we do like a staff lunch. Everybody at all of our locations, all of our staff get together, and Pastor Tim and Crystal buy them lunch and we eat lunch together. We have meetings all day. And one Monday night, I get a phone call from Crystal and she says, hey, I want you to order Hot Walk for lunch tomorrow. So here's what to order, blah, blah. So I call Hot Walk that night and I get all the order together. The next day, it's Tuesday, it's like 11:30, and I think to myself, oh man, I should probably check and make sure that's being made, because there's a bunch of people here who are tired and hungry who will hang me out to dry if for some reason I screwed this order up. So I call Hot Walk and I say, hey man, just checking on that order I put in yesterday. Want to make sure that it's getting done and what time it'll be done and stuff like that. And he goes, let me put you on hold. Forever. I wait about 5 minutes before I hang up the phone and I call back. And now I'm running out of time. I got maybe 10, 15 minutes to figure out what I'm gonna do if this food isn't getting made. So he picks up the phone. I say, hey man, just calling about that order that I put in yesterday. Just wanna make sure it's getting done and what time it's gonna be done at. And he goes, let me put you on hold. And I go, whoa. Do not put me on hold. Last time you put me on hold, you put me on hold forever. And I don't know if you all have ever been to a Hot Walk, but it's like the size of my living room. The phone's in the kitchen. Bro, look to your left and tell me if it's being done. It's not that hard. So he says, give me 30 seconds. He puts me on hold. He comes back 30 seconds later. He says, my manager will be calling you in 2 minutes. And I'm like, no, bro. No. Your manager needs to call me now? I said, he don't need to call me. I'm a block away. I'm on my way. So I get in my car and I'm driving there. And while I'm driving there, he says, hey, while you're on your way here, my manager will call you. And I go, no. We're staying on the phone. Me and you, we're about to meet. I want to know why it's so hard for you to tell me what's going on. And then I walk into the store and I go, I'm here. Which one of you am I talking to? And there's a lady in front of me. She turns around. It's Pastor Tim's wife, Crystal, and she says, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm trying to find out if the food's being made. And she said, of course it is. I'm picking it up. It's right here. And I go, then why can't this guy tell me that? Where are you? And he goes, I'm in the back. And I go, come out here. And that's when I found out Hot Walk uses call centers. He wasn't there at all. I thought he was right there in the kitchen, but he was hundreds of miles away. We make the wrong assumption. I thought my marriage was good. We're on two different planets. I thought my relationship with my kids was fine when it was really falling apart. I thought my health was good until I saw the doctor. I thought I'd work here forever till you lose your job. We make the wrong assumptions. I think I have more time. I thought I had more time. They're gone too fast, too quick. That's one that we make. That's huge. It's a huge one. We think we have more time. We assume we have more time. But time's gone like that. Moses does not make that assumption. After this dialogue with God, he comes back, and in Exodus 4:18, it says that, then Moses went back to Jethro, his father-in-law, said to him, let me return to my people. He's on the move. He's got to go get lunch at Hot Walk. He's on the move. I got to go. He does not make the assumption that he has more time. Billy Graham once said, the greatest surprise to life to him, greatest surprise in life to him is the brevity of it, how quickly it's gone. Our resolutions fail because we're unwilling to go through the pain. We think it's impossible. We don't think we have the right tools. We don't have the right people around us, and we make the wrong assumptions. So where do we go from here? What do I do with all that, Pastor? Thanks for telling me why I'm a failure. Let me give you 3 things you can do that'll help you create success in your resolution. 3 more things. If you're taking notes, you can write it down. The first thing that we can do this year to be successful in our resolution is get with God. You got to get with God. All good life change starts with this God encounter. Moses has this God encounter at the burning bush, and it shifts everything. It changes everything for him. I had a God encounter when I was 26 in a bookstore, and it changed everything for me. You need a God encounter. You need to meet with God and have a conversation with God about that area of your life that you're trying to shift. My 9-year-old Rebecca came into my room about 3 months ago, and she said, Dad, Rachel keeps saying there's no God. That's my 5-year-old. And I said, what? Tell Rachel to come in here. So Rachel comes in, she crawls up on the bed, and I go, Rachel, do you not believe in God? And she literally said it like this. She went, Dad, there's no God. And I went, why don't you believe in God? And she went, I don't see him. I don't hear him. There's no God. And I'm blown away by this. One, it's a very, she put together a whole logical argument based off of her experiences in the world around her. Like, you're 5. You're supposed to still believe in fairies. And how'd you come up with this? Now, meanwhile, her sister, who's madly in love with God, is standing at the doorway crying out for her soul. She's like, Rachel, don't say that. You have to have faith. They tell us in E-Kids. I said, Rachel, what do you think I do for a living? And she goes, I don't know. I said, tell people about God. The next day I was telling a friend, I said, hey, my 5-year-old told me last night she doesn't believe in God. And my friend goes, oh, I was meaning to tell you, Rachel was telling my 5-year-old that there's no God. And I was like, she's telling other kids? She's like the Richard Dawkins of 5-year-olds? Now, I expect my kids to have a faith crisis, right? I have 4 kids. One of them is going to have a faith crisis, but I would assume it would be in their teens or in their 20s, not when they're 5. So you start questioning, did maybe I guess you changed the way you raise your kids over time. Is that what happened? Because they wear you down, and then you just give up on how to raise them. So maybe that was it. And then you come up with a strategy, like maybe I need to have more Christian content in their world. Maybe be more spiritually involved in her world. And all that's great. But you know what Rachel really needs? She needs a real encounter with the living God. Even at 5 years old. So every night I pray over her and I say, Lord, I pray that you would show up in this little girl's world in such a significant way that she could not deny it. That your love would pierce her heart in the most tangible way possible. She needs to meet with God. You need to meet with God. Now that seems pretty ambiguous, doesn't it? Okay, thanks, Pastor. I need to meet with God. You got a burning bush hidden behind the building? No, I don't. But I do have some tools. And you have those tools too on how to meet with God. Next week, we're starting a thing called 21 Days of Prayer and Fasting. And we've been doing it since the church began. There are hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of churches that do this all across the globe. Every January, we join together and we do 21 days of prayer and fasting. It gives us an opportunity to chase after God and have a God moment in the beginning of the year. Now, how does it work? One, you fast something. Well, what does it mean to fast something? It means like maybe there's something in your life that's a habit, or maybe it's an addiction, or it's taken up too much of importance in your life, or it's elevated above your love for God, and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to take this, I'm going to set it aside for the next 21 days. Now, biblically, the only thing they ever really fasted in the Bible was food. So if you want to straight be biblical, it's going to be food. But of course, they also didn't have social media in those days, so food was kind of their only entertainment. So you set it aside, and it allows you to begin to tune out the world and tune into the voice of God. Begin to align your heart with God. And it makes things quieter so you can begin to hear him. The second thing we do is every single morning, Monday through Friday, at all of our locations, we do a prayer service. It's from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. For those of you who have never been to one, it looks like this. It's just worship. We do a couple songs of worship. We do a devotional, 10, 15-minute devotional from one of our staff members. We have time for you to pray and walk around and just pray individually. And then we gather together and we pray corporately. Then you're out of here at 7 a.m. But basically what we do is we spend 21 days denying something in our life to tune into the voice of God. And then we spend an hour a day intentionally chasing after God. Now, if you do that, if you really do that, I believe that you will encounter God in such a fashion that it will change the very direction of your life. Every huge life change that's ever happened in my Christian walk has happened during a significant fast. In fact, the reason I'm here today in Jacksonville is because of 21 days of prayer and fasting. 9 years ago, I was living in my father-in-law's basement. I just had my second kid. It's never good when you say, your wife had her second kid and you're living with your father-in-law. That's bad. Like Moses, I had lost it all. I was a sheep herder now. And it was 21 days, and Pastor Tim called me up. I hadn't talked to him in months. And he said, hey man, have you been fasting? And I said, not this year. I've given up. And he said, well, I have. And I feel like the Lord just told me you're supposed to move here. And I thought, thank God someone's fasting. Changed the direction of my life. I could give you a half a dozen stories of those moments in the middle of a fast. So here's my challenge to you. Pick something to fast, but make it something real, like real painful. And you're sitting here, you're going, I'm gonna fast cream in my coffee. only black. Come on. Let's fast something that's painful, something that I'll miss, something that I'll struggle with, something that will focus my mind on the living God. I want to fast something serious. And then next Monday, show up at your location, 6 a.m. Get up and get here. Don't watch it virtually. Go through the pain of getting up and showing up to the house of God and getting around the people of God. And watch God do the impossible in your finances, in your marriage, in your relationships, in that business, in that area of your life where you're trying to shift and change and become somebody new. And I believe if you do that, if you really do that and you take it seriously, I believe God will move in that area and that thing will become permanent. Now, there's a couple reasons why you wouldn't show up. One, you're good. You feel like, I don't got nothing to change. You do you, boo. You be confident. That's all good. I'm not judging you. Or two, you work. I can't come because I work. Okay, well, here's my suggestion to you if you work from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. We play it back virtually, online. Set aside an hour in your day. Make it consistent from 12 to 1, from 5 to 6. I'm going to play back the service, and I'm going to chase after God for that hour. I'm going to be a part of this. I'm giving an hour to God every single day. Or you could even join our McClenny location. Our McClenny location is going to have their services from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. You can go out to Baker County Middle School and go to those services. But you need to meet with God, and it'll change everything. Second thing, you need to get a good group of friends. Got a little Moses disability there. Get a good group of friends. How do you do that? Jump into a small group. Jump on a serve team. Don't jump on a serve team because I need you to serve. Jump on a serve team because your best friends are right there waiting for you to find them. Do you know that the majority of my closest friends, my current closest friends, all my best friends that I talk to every day, I hang out with every day, I could trace back our current relationship all the way back to launching the Clay County jail location, serving on that team. I launched that location with a team of people. And the very first service, I said to the guys, I said, hey, when you get out, we're your family, and we're going to take care of you. And whatever you need, you just give me a call. And then there was a guy named Chris in there who was like, hey, man, I'm getting out in 2 days. And he called me up 2 days later. And the problem was like, even though I said all those things, I didn't know what I was doing. So I said, all right, buddy, I'll come pick you up. And I picked him up, we brought him up to the church, and then we started making phone calls. We got him housing, and if I dotted it all the way down, you would see the majority of my closest friends and how they're connected, because I chose to serve on that team. And at any given service, at our Oak Leaf location, any given service, any given weekend, you could stand next to me and you could challenge me with this and go, point to one person in this room whose life was radically changed that you could tie back to that one service, and I can do it. I guarantee you I can do it. That's how many people have been impacted because of that one moment in time. So you don't know what friends you're going to make or whose lives you're going to change. If you jump on that team, jump into a small group. You want to have a better marriage? Why aren't you in a marriage small group? You want to be a better parent? Why aren't you in a parenting small group? You want to get over that hurt, habit, or hang up, that addiction? Why aren't you in a recovery group? I do our Celebrate Recovery group. Maybe it's because you're here and you're still in your addiction. Like, I got to get out of my addiction before I get into the group. I promise you, with 100 people in that room at any given week, there's someone who relapsed. Somebody's back in their addiction. Come join us as we try not to level our lives every week. Why aren't you in a freedom group? Groups start in just a couple weeks. Jump into a small group. Final thing. Get started. Get with God, get some friends, get started. Get started right now, today, like right now. You want to get healthy? Leave here and go straight to the gym. I don't care if you go to the gym and you sit on the couch at the gym and watch YouTube videos next to the weights. At some point, you'll pick them up. Get started today. Get started right now. Because you might be out of time. A couple weeks after my buddy Bucky's dad's funeral, my buddy Zinz's mom went to the doctor because she wasn't feeling well. And he called me up, he said, it's cancer. I've never seen it progress this quickly. So she was fine at the funeral. 2 weeks later, it's cancer. A week later, she's in the hospital. And I call him and I go, what are the doctors saying? And he said, they're saying it's terminal. I said, how long does she have? And he said, a week. So I said, should I fly home? What should I do? And he said, she doesn't want it to do. She doesn't want anybody flying in. She doesn't want a funeral. She doesn't want anything. He said, we're bringing her home Monday. And then she'll pass by the end of the week. And I said, well, I'm going to call her on Monday because I want to tell her I love her and I'm so thankful for all that she did for me in my life. Like Mama Zins is a mom to me, like one of my moms. I'm listed on her obituary as one of her kids. It's Monday morning, and I got time. Zins calls me up at about 11 a.m. and he says, hey man, I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to call. She has passed. I was out of time. You may be just 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months away from your marriage being irreconcilable. You may be 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 months away from a health event that's so significant you'll never recover from it. You may be just 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months away from this addiction leveling your life completely. You may be out of time. Start today. Don't wait. Start today. Reconcile that relationship today. Make the decision to be different today. Make decisions to take steps today to be different. Start today. And if you fail today, then start tomorrow. And you fail tomorrow, start the next day and the next day and the next day. And then you'll string a couple days together and maybe then a couple weeks together and then maybe a couple months together. And then before you know it, it'll just become who you are. And you'll wake up one day and you'll go, wow, I really did change that thing. I really did become that person. But it may be too late if you don't start today. My wife, Bonnie, talks about how 4 years ago I was sitting on the bed and she could look down at my feet and they were turning purple because I was so obese. I could have been just a few days, a few weeks, a few months away from a cardiac event that was going to take me from my family. Start today. Start right now. Would you guys pray with me? Every head bowed, every eye closed. Maybe you're here today and you're brand new to this whole Jesus thing. You're like, man, I haven't had that God encounter. I think change in your life starts right there. Like real change in your life starts with a moment where you just surrender to God. You say, I'm in. God, I'm going to let you in to this area of my life, my finances, my marriage, my relationships, my friendships, my kids. I'm going to let you in. Let me see what you can do. I believe that if you take one step towards God, he's going to come running after you. And maybe you're here today and some friend dragged you here and your heart's beating a mile a minute. In a moment, I'm going to give you an opportunity to step across that line of faith and put God to the test. Could he really change everything in you? Could he really do it? Maybe you're here today and you're a Christ follower, but you've allowed all of those excuses to stop you from becoming all that God's called you to be. Have you grown distant from God, not been intentional about meeting with him? In a moment, I want to give you an opportunity to hit the reset button and start again. If that's you, I'm not asking you to come down front. I'm not asking you to stand up. Whether you want to hit the reset button or start this relationship for the first time, at the count of 3, I want you to raise your hand. With every head bowed, every eye closed. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Hands all across the room. You guys can put your hands down. Let's do this, church. Let's pray this together out loud. Repeat after me. Dear Jesus, I give you my life. Lord, use me. Shape me into the person you're calling me to be. Surround me with the right people and do the impossible in my life. In Jesus' name, amen.